Hi! Welcome back. I've always been one to constantly criticize every gacha game with big enough issues. These are million, most times billion-dollar companies that really like taking as much money as they can from you, so we should expect nothing but perfection from their products. So in this video, I've compiled a list of the most popular and the community's favorite gacha games and ranked the biggest issues in each one of them so we can have one unified video of my biggest criticisms of every game, based on the type of player that I am, someone who cares about gameplay, skill, and F2P accessibility the most. Final disclaimer is that not every issue is going to be detrimental. For example, games like Zenless Zone Zero and Wuthering Waves don't have huge enough issues that stop me from playing, but they just exist and I want to talk about them. So, make sure to like and subscribe and share your thoughts in the comments and join the Express Rain Discord server for a huge giveaway we're doing right now, and let's get on to it. As usual, we start off with Genshin Impact. Oh boy, the list for this one is pretty damn long, since almost every update in this game, something new makes the list.
You just made the list!
But the top 3 issues I would nominate for this game are as follows: the greed in F2P accessibility, the poor gameplay, and the insane length of the stories. Starting off with the greed in F2P accessibility, while Genshin Impact has always had a hard-on for draining as much as it could out of its player base by simply never providing enough rewards, it has gotten slightly better at that recently, in all honesty. However, it also got worse by introducing power creep and HP inflation to the endgame content, and a whale-focused mode in the form of Stygian Onslaught. Now you can most definitely still clear with many older units, especially strong ones like Hu Tao, however I do feel like that is going to stop being the case pretty damn soon. Also, the fact that new elemental reactions are being region and character locked is pretty ass. However, I would still say that Genshin Impact is completely fine for F2P players, but more specifically its own player base. In the case of Genshin's player base, they are probably the most casual people on the planet when it comes to playing games. I mean, this is some Animal Crossing and Stardew Valley level casual gaming, but Stardew Valley and Animal Crossing at the very least don't try to drain your walls 24/7. Either way, Genshin's player base just aren't affected that much by these changes so far. It's definitely nowhere near the levels of HSR, and we still have people defending HSR's F2P accessibility, so I would say this is the smallest Genshin Impact issue at number 3. I would say the stories are a slightly bigger issue, because in my opinion especially, anything longer than 2 or 3 hours is a complete drag. I mean, there's nothing else I have to say about this, I really hate long stories. There's also no skip button still, so it's number 2. The gameplay is by far Genshin's biggest issue. My biggest issue with it is that it's just not enough action RPG in an action RPG game. These action RPG gacha games for me absolutely have to have at least one of the 2 fundamental systems, which are perfect dodges and parries. Genshin has neither. Dodging attacks with frame-perfect precision does not reward you with stamina or extra damage, it's just an iframe, and parries are for like one local legend and that's it, and that does not count. Now, if you really don't want these 2 systems, you can make up for it with your other games' systems, but in my opinion, Genshin's elemental reactions just aren't that fun anymore. The game, from where I stand, stopped being about creativity when you create teams and now is just a monetization fest, especially with region locking the new elemental reactions. The endgame loop is also really bad, I think we can all agree on that, and no, exploration isn't fun. So the poor gameplay is Genshin Impact's number 1 issue. I was going to nominate the talent material still being locked behind certain days of the week, but I don't think that's as big of an issue as the others. It's mostly a quality of life thing. Next up, let's not dilly-dally too far off of Genshin's state, because the next game is Honkai Star Rail. The 3 biggest issues here aren't as general as Genshin's issues, they're a little more nuanced. The first is the terrible state of the character kits in the game, specifically made so much worse by Cyrene. I refuse to call her Cyrene, by the way, that sounds so wrong to me. The lack of proper content is number 2, and the final one will of course be the HP inflation. Now, Honkai Star Rail already has 4 major endgame modes, the main 3 rotating every 2 weeks with each other, and then Anomaly Arbitration rotating every patch. Now, this new mode did add to the very small amount of content, sure, but the rotations are still incredibly slow and the modes are still not fun, except Apocalyptic Shadow sometimes. Especially Anomaly Arbitration, which is a really whale mode, and while that's fine because it gives no currency, it's still ass because many F2P players can't really have fun in it. Also, here come the, well, I'm F2P but I cleared Anomaly Arbitration, you're just stupid and greedy. Shut up. It's just a not fun mode filled with artificial difficulty and nothing else, which is a trend in HSR as a whole. Speaking of which, HP inflation is a form of artificial difficulty, and it might just be the worst form of it because it's just a bigger number than before that increases difficulty in the laziest way and sticks a middle finger for F2P players just for profit. HP inflation, genuinely. And of course, the character kit situation. Cyrene is one of the worst kits I've ever seen in a modern gacha game, or just any gacha game ever, honestly. I don't really want to go too much into detail, but as soon as 4.x units power creep 3.x units, she becomes useless. And that power creep will happen, and especially because of the way Hoyo creates character kits as a whole. They create them for profit and to just increase damage more and more while older units get weaker. They stuff these kits with as many OP things as possible, like why does Castoreus have resistance penetration and why does Hyacine do so much f***ing damage? But then they also make other kits feel incomplete, like Maida and Aglaea's issues without their E2 and E1 respectively, and many characters with their light cones. I think the character kits are the single worst issue in HSR because if they were fine, both power creep and HP inflation wouldn't exist, followed by the lack of content, then the HP inflation, because there are still many players who do enjoy HSR despite this, but can't because there's not enough content. Let's take a break from the very mainstream gacha games and look at Limbus Company. There is no shortage of shorts of me glazing the hell out of this game because there are so many great things about it. The F2B accessibility is only matched by the likes of Arknights and Battlecats, and it absolutely has the single best gacha story of all time, better than the likes of Reverse 1999 and Fate Grand Order. However, there is one issue with this game, and that is the gameplay loop. There are only two endgame modes, the Mirror Dungeons and Refraction Railways, the latter of which barely even exists because it rotates so rarely, while Mirror Dungeons is just repetitive. There are 5 extra levels added to the Mirror Dungeons mode a couple months ago, but honestly, they just don't seem to be enough. They're just a band-aid solution, definitely a fix, but they didn't make that much of a difference in the long run, so Limbus Company's biggest issue is the lack of a proper endgame loop. Similarly, Fate Grand Order's biggest issue is the exact same thing. Great combat, great mechanics, great everything, but they have the same issue of a bad endgame loop. FGO is worse though because it doesn't even have rotating endgame modes. The only form of endgame is, aside of a couple of small bits here and there, event challenge quests. While those are extremely fun, very well made and satisfy the need for content, they are not as common as they need to be. Fate Grand Order's biggest issue is the endgame loop as well. Honestly, Limbus Company and Fate Grand Order would be absolutely insane with proper endgame content. Next up, let's look at Wuthering Waves. Recently, the devs have both been messing up and fixing things, so it's a little complicated, especially for a busy person as me who doesn't always keep up 24/7, but either way, the biggest issue I wanted to talk about when this video idea came up was character kits like Frolova, Zani, and Galbraina either being restrictive or having very powerful weapons. While that definitely hasn't changed, the new character Tisa seems to be pretty F2P accessible, and they also finally released a 4-star. If they do keep listening like this and release more characters like Chisa and Buling, then this will no longer be an issue. However, if this goes on, then Wuthering Waves will become a really terrible game for F2P players. The other issue is of course the lack of proper content. This is even worse than a game like Honkai Star Rail. Wuthering Waves only has 2 rotating endgame modes while HSR has 4. However, Whimpering Wastes is so incredibly boring, so it may as well just be one monthly mode as far as I'm concerned. Wuthering Waves' events have also been completely HSR coded lately, unfortunately. Vampire Survivors and Tower Defense, where the account you built matters all. That is currently definitely the biggest issue in Wuthering Waves. We'll see how the devs handle it in the next updates, and since the new characters seem pretty good, I'm at least a little hopeful. And keeping on trend with great action RPG gacha games, Zenless Zone Zero is up next. There are also 2 main issues for this game. The biggest ones I could find players complaining about are 1. Weapons being insanely character specific, and 2. The good old famous deadly assault shilling. Now, weapons being insanely specific and some characters even like Miyabi really wanting her weapon is a huge issue. Weapons are almost exactly as expensive as characters and they have to be as worth it as these characters. Meanwhile, they bring so little value while also at the same time feeling very necessary, because they are hyper-specific to one character that really needs them. Other characters in this game that are facing these weapon specificity and overpoweredness issues are Orphe, Lucia, and Trigger, and if we could have less of that, that would be very nice. Deadly Assault's boss choices are also becoming an issue. Now, before saying anything, despite these issues, Deadly Assault is still absolutely the best endgame mode in the 4 big gachas today. No doubt about that. However, I feel like we should be very wary about these issues just to make sure that this mode stays that way. There are some HP inflation concerns thrown around, however I don't think these are an issue right now. They may become so in the future because it's Hoyo, but so far it's fine. Either way, the biggest offender of bosses shielding characters in Deadly Assault is Defiler, who shield double attack combs, so you wanted Obal Squad or Soldier 11 Ambi teams, and if you didn't have them, GG. So the ranking for these issues is going to be the weapon situation as the worst, followed by the deadly assault boss shillings. Before we go to the last 2 games, let's really quickly do our lightning round with a bunch of different games. In Punishing Grey Raven, character dupes are insanely powerful despite the game being incredibly F2P friendly still. In Honkai Impact 3rd, the biggest issue is how much they f***ed up Part 2. In Etheria Restart, the biggest issue is that grinding in this game is incredibly boring and drags on for way too long. On Love and Deep Space and Infinity Nikki, the issues are the same, which is the devs just being incredibly greedy with their gacha and gameplay systems, just being kinda ass for F2P players. And to top off the lightning round, Dragon Ball Legends' biggest issues are the power creep, and Ultra units either having no pity or having incredibly high pity for F2P players. So with that out of the way, let's look at my favorite gacha game of all time, the Battle Cats, and I actually, honestly, without any bias at all, see no issue in this game at all. In my eyes, this is the perfect gacha game. If I were to come up with any issue, it would be incredibly nitpicky. Like, I could say the relatively new Aku or Relic enemies required you to either talent up your units or pull brand new ones, but that is just completely offset by how F2P friendly the game is. So in all honesty, no issues in Battle Cats. And of course, as I have glazed Battle Cats, I will now proceed to glaze Arc Knights. I also see no issue in this game. The only thing somebody could argue as an issue in these games is their relatively niche gameplay, because not a lot of people enjoy tower defense or whatever the hell Battle Cats' genre is. Arc Knights also has an insane amount of content, is incredibly F2P friendly, so I just see zero issues with Arc Knights as well. For someone like me, I guess you could say the story is too much text, but also a skip button exists. And that's everything I have for you today. I know I promised an issue for every game, but honestly, Battle Cats and Arc Knights are just way too good. I was racking my brains and researching for almost 2 hours trying to look for big enough issues to mention in this video, but that's all I could come up with, I'm sorry. So, thank you so much for watching. Make sure to like, comment, and subscribe for more content like this in the future, and join the Express Range Discord server for a fun and lovely community to hang out with, and for a massive giveaway. Thank you again for watching, and I will see you next time.